Today we're going to look at dividing by powers of 10. Looking at our learning objectives today, we're going to recall the meaning of the word integer. That's a word that we looked at last week. We're going to demonstrate how we can use place value to divide by 10, 100 and 1000. And hopefully we will be able to explain why we can't just take off the zeros like you might have done in primary school. So let's have a look to start with at integer. Integer is something that we looked at last week. Can you pause the video and just say what you can remember about the word integer? Let's have a look if you got it right. So an integer is a whole number. So that means a number which has no decimals or fractions. So some examples I have on the screen here: 12, 3, 47, 8, 29, 141, etc. None of those have a decimal point or a fraction involved. So those are examples of integers. Right, let's get on with today's lesson. So to start with today, we're going to look at how we use our place value chart that we've seen over the last few lessons to help us divide by 10. Now when we looked at multiplying by 10 last lesson, we said that when we multiplied a positive number by 10, it made the number bigger. And we made it bigger using our place value chart by moving everything one place to the left. So when we're dividing a positive number by 10, whether that be an integer or a decimal, what do you think is going to happen to that integer or to that decimal? So when we multiplied by 10, the number got bigger. So when we divide by 10, our number gets smaller. And when we multiplied by 10, we moved all the digits one place to the left. What do you think we do with our digits when we're dividing by 10? That's right, we're going to move them this time one place to the right. So I've got 3 examples here on the screen. I'm starting with my red one, which should be the easiest, which is 190 divided by 10. I'm going to start by putting my number 190 into the place value chart. So the 1 goes in the hundreds column, the 9 goes in the tens column, and the 0 goes in the units column. That's the number 190. And to divide by 10, everything moves one place to the right. So the 1 moves to the tens column, the 9 moves to the units column, and the 0 jumps over the decimal point into the tenths column. So my answer is 19. And I can put 19.0, but really I just need to put 19. And what you might know from primary school is that when we are dividing by 10, we are making it 10 times smaller. And really, we are just taking that 0 off the end, which is a really handy trick to know, but it doesn't always work. Let's look at our second example, 19 divided by 10. For this one, I can't just take the 0 off because there isn't a 0 on the number. And that's why I need to be able to use my place value chart. So I'm going to put the number 19 in the columns. The 1 goes in the tens column and the 9 goes in the units column. Look how similar this number is. That was actually our answer to the previous question. When I divide by 10, everything moves one place to the right. So the 1 moves to the units column and the 9 jumps to the tenths column. The decimal point never moves. This time, my answer, 19 divided by 10, is 1.9. And this time, that decimal point is really important. So I can't use that handy trick of get rid of the 0, because for this question, there isn't a 0 to get rid of, but I can still divide by 10. Let's take a look at our hardest example now, and that is 1.9 divided by 10. So this is not an integer. This is a decimal, not a whole number. But I can still use this rule to divide by 10. So I put my number 1.9 on my place value chart. My 1 goes under my units, my decimal point stays in the decimal point column, and my 9 goes in my tenths column. To divide by 10, every digit moves 1 place to the right. So the unit jumps to the tenths column, and the 9 moves to the hundredths column. Now remember, there should always be a decimal point in the decimal points column. But I can't have 0.19. So what am I going to put in the units column? Can you remember from last lesson what we put in the units column or what we put in the empty columns as a placeholder? That's right, we put a 0 because we've got no units, so it becomes a 0. So the answer to 1.9 divided by 10 is 0.19. So the rules we need to remember are if we divide a positive number by 10, the number gets smaller and we move every digit 1 place to the right. Now it's your turn. I'd like you in a second to pause the video and have a go at task number 1, dividing by 10. It's multiple choice and there are 15 questions. Let's see how many you can get right. Pause the video now. How did you get on? How many out of 15 did you get? If you got more than 10 out of 15, that is a brilliant score. Well done. If you got less than 15, maybe have a second try and see if you can improve your score. So now we know how to divide by 10. Let's have a look if we can find the trick for dividing by 100. We've just looked at dividing a positive number by 10, and we said that this makes the number smaller. And to do this, we move every digit 1 place to the left. Oh, no we didn't. We said we did this by moving every digit 1 place to the right. I hope you didn't spot my mistake. So now we're going to look at dividing a positive number by 100. If I divide by 100, is my number going to get bigger or smaller? What do you think? Well done. The number is still going to get smaller. It's going to get even smaller than if I was dividing by 10. And what do you think is going to happen to all the digits in my number? When I divided by 10, all the digits moved 1 place to the right. So when I divide by 100, what do you think is going to happen to all those digits? Pause the video and tell your screen. Did you say that all the digits are going to move 2 places to the right? Well done. So let's have a look at my 3 examples again. I'm going to use the same method of my place value chart. So my first example, a nice easy one, is 4,200. And I'm going to put that in my column headings. So the 4 goes in the thousands, the 2 goes in the hundreds, and I've got a 0 in the tens and the units as placeholders. To divide by 100, every digit moves 2 places to the right. So 1, 2, my 4 moves to the tens column. 1, 2, my 2 moves to the units column. My decimal point never moves. And my zeros, 1, 2, go here, 1, 2, and here. But really, I don't need zeros after the decimal point. So the answer to 4,200 divided by 100 is 42. Thinking about last time, our last example, we could say we just get rid of the 2 zeros. But I'm sure you've already looked ahead and can see that not all of my questions have 2 zeros. So let's have a look at the next one, slightly harder. My orange example is 420 divided by 100. So I'm going to put that under my place headings. 4 in the hundreds column, 2 in the tens column, and a 0 in the units column. To divide by 100, every digit moves 2 places to the right. So 1, 2, 4 goes here. 1 jump, 2, the 2 goes here. And jump, 2, the 0 goes here. And my decimal point never moves. So my answer to 420 divided by 100 is 4.2, and I don't have to put any zeros that come at the end of the number. So I can't just take off 2 zeros from this question because I've only got 1 in the first place. Let's have a look at my final really tricky example, and the green one is 42 divided by 100. Again, I'm going to put them in my place headings, 4 in the tens column and 2 in the units. And because I'm dividing by 100, every digit is going to move 2 places to the right. 1, jump, 2. Jump, 2. My decimal point never moves. And can you remember what I need to put in front of that decimal point as a placeholder in the units column? Because I can't just have 0.42, can I? Perfect, it's a 0.42. So that's my answer. 42 divided by 100 is 0.42. Lovely and simple. So remember the rules for dividing by 100. The number gets smaller. And when we divide by 100, we move every digit 2 places to the right. The last thing I'd like you to do today is have a go at task number 2, dividing by 100. This one isn't multiple choice, so you need to make sure that you're writing your answers super careful. If you put a 0 that isn't needed, it might mark it wrong to start with, but when I check your work later this week, I'll be able to correct it and give you the marks that you are entitled to. Let's see if you can get more than 10 out of 15. Good luck.